This podcast contains adult language, descriptions of violence, sexual references, and other possibly offensive themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to this episode of Back to the Story, where friends come together to play Dungeons and Dragons. I'll be your DM, Klaus. Let's get started.
When you see God's Rust surrounded by armies,
I'm sorry I couldn't buy us more time.
then know that its dissolution has come near.
I mean, I have great faith in the gods. I think that no matter what happens, they're going to triumph over this.
Then let those who are upon the pinnacle flee to the mountains.
And it's not really our place to judge, but to serve.
And let those who are inside the city depart.
I think if you gave me a few days, I could learn enough deep speech to try.
And let not those who are out in the forest enter it.
I'm an archaeologist. Disrespecting the dead is kind of what I do.
For these are the days of vengeance,
I just want to know what the fuck I am.
to fulfill all that is written.
Do not heed the visions of false prophets. Do not become what they want you to become.
Alright, Scales. It's up to you now. You've got this.
I just ate some dry nuts.
Did you?
I'm so glad you're
And it's, I'm trying to clear my throat.
Can you set custom notification sounds for... I'll have sound on just so I can... I just ate some dried nuts.
Alright, so we'll come back to the story, a recap of previous episode 63, Warden of Execution. The laughter of children echoes off the grey stone walls as people sit, eating, talking, drinking around the town square. The city is dark and grey, yet the eyes of the people glow with a kaleidoscope of colours. Orange, violet, green, blue. The palace overlooks the square as a woman watches through the window. She is tan with dark hair flowing back from a widow's peak with vibrant glowing golden eyes. She's catching her breath before turning inward to face the training room once more. The vision shifts to watch the dark ground vibrating. The streaks of red lightning fall upward towards the sky. Heavy breathing and stalking footsteps are heard as we watch a heavy claymore, jagged and vibrant red, as if made from lightning frozen solid, is dragged through the ashen ground, stirring loose a trail of streaking red. The warning bells stone to meet the creature of war, mad with loss and with defeat. At their head is the woman with golden eyes. Outside the gates they meet. To the right, Golden Eyes takes point of cavalry in silver plate. She brandishes an ivory shield and a spear. To the left, the cursed creature stands 12 foot tall, jagged claymore raised, taking point of a storm. Not a storm of weather, nor of tempest, but of passion and emotion, anger and violence manifested. The forces clash, with the ivory shield holding against the reckless and mad chops of the jagged claymore. But the spear breaks against the creature, and a blow sends Golden Eyes off her feet and onto the ashen ground. The claymore is raised above as the vision shifts towards Golden Eyes, who strains, reaching her empty hand out to the side. Her eyes shift from gold to crimson stars as a saber of red void manifests in her hands before she plunges it into the creature. Remembrance of Katara, the cursed Avendabelar. Previously, as the Bronze Scales continue to finish old business in Embershore, as they wait Tasha's word, they find themselves in the Norbell Reserve Library, conducting some research. As Amsen and Felix dig in, Ball saw a vision in the building storm, with clues to his past as Ellory prayed with Storm Dreamer as a hurricane rolled in. Mugthar followed up with his contact in the Covenant with a possible way of ingress into Rothpoint Rook, and the Scales set a plan to kill the city's nefarious Warden of Execution. The scales moved into the sphere as an invisible Ellory hid inside a supply crate. The Covenant picked up the supplies and carried them, and the stowaway scales, directly into Rothburn Rook. Once inside, Ellory sulked through the room and hallways that led to the dungeon, but switched places in the sphere with Felix, who attempted to mist through the guarded room. However, magical protective enchantment suppressed the misty magic, and Felix fell into an antechamber, where Covenants descended upon him. Restrained and detained, Felix ended up talking with Sarnellis before breaking out of his cell and unlocking a few others, causing a distraction. He tried to get to the sphere containing the scales, but was stopped by a wall of force from Sarnellis. As the chaos from the prison broke arose, Felix and Sarnellis came to an understanding. Sarnellis would hide the magic items, including the sphere, and only then release Felix with the understanding that they were not to return. We'll come back to the story here. It's late afternoon as you've exited the sphere outside of Embershore, heading towards the Copper Sail. The storm which passed left its toll upon the Grey City as you enter, and many are out cleaning the debris and beginning to repair broken windows, roofs, and homes as you walk through. You pass Covenant with their bone armor and red ribbons nodding to you as they finish tearing down the Red Watch barricades into the Devil's Yard. A cool blue breeze rolls through the city, carrying a light mist, cold as winter comes and the golden sun begins to slowly descend. What would you like to do?
So I think we were heading back to the Copper Sail. Is Felix telling us about what happened on our way, or is he waiting until we get there?
I think I'm going to wait to talk about how we tried to break into prison until we're well within sight.
So I think as we're walking, Ellory is very quiet and kind of her expression going back and forth between angry and frustrated and defeated, and then kind of cycling back through that again.
I think Vesper's the same. Looks disappointed, doing that silent sulk with maybe some wisps of smoke coming off of her.
I think Amsen just looks tired, but maybe a little disappointed, but he'll wait until we get a little bit of a private area at the Copper Sail to really say anything.
As you're sulking through the city, you eventually move into the Exchange and then to the Copper Sail. There's no one in there. Outside as you approach, Mogther and Brett are currently taking down some planks that they were using to shield the windows and such. But they let you inside, and there's currently no one in there. It's closed as they're doing this.
Well, I suppose you all want to hear what happened.
Yeah. How much trouble are we in?
Thanks to me, none. Well, we're idiots for not realizing that that the prison would be warded against magic. So when I tried to make my way through the gates, all of the magic surrounding me failed. Disguise, mist, your ability to exit the sphere. Yes. Thankfully, I am a genius, and managed to convince the guards to take me to Sarnellis, where, rather than imprison me, we engaged in a battle of wits for several hours, at which I came out on top, and although I was forced to submit, I did manage to get us out of there safely.
Do we believe this?
Roll an insight check. And then Georgia can roll what you want.
Rolling that too.
Amsen appreciates the art of storytelling.
That's a natural one, so whatever you say, Felix.
13 for me.
5 for my
Hey!
Right.
So Felix, you tell me, what does she notice? Is he exaggerating in a weird way, or does he have a tic? What's the giveaway?
I think there's a moment where his eyes kind of go unfocused as he thinks. I think Felix usually talks very matter-of-fact and quick. This is more considering.
Sounds like a fascinating tale, Felix.
So he just let us go?
Yes. He didn't want to be bothered.
What's the catch then?
We never see him again.
Well, thank you for getting us out of there, Felix. I guess we did underestimate him to some extent.
Look, I'm sure he did bad things. And I'm sure he's not a good person. But this revenge, this insane drive to do what we want just because we think we're powerful enough, I think this has to be a reminder that we are still very vulnerable. And there's something that we have to do, and if we get caught in these minor ordeals just because we get too overconfident. I sat in a prison cell for hours thinking everything I spent the last decade of my life for was over. We have to be careful.
Well, I guess you have
smart.
a little bit of an idea of what it was like to be in there for 8 months.
I'm sorry for what happened to you, Ellory. But honestly, you are not the most important thing here, and you need to start realizing that the whole world is more important than what happened to you. I'm sorry, and it sucks, but you can't fix everything in the world. But we can maybe save it together.
And how are we supposed to do that if we can't deal with one fucking person?
Maybe if we learn to control our emotions, we would have a better shot.
We're not going to get anywhere yelling at each other. Felix, I do agree with you to some extent, and I understand your point. The world is important, as Ember Shore was our world in its entirety. And so we do have business here that we need to take care of, at least a little bit. And Amsen will turn to Ellory. I like to think that most of it's done, with this underground syndicate of slave traders and demon blood brewers and all these things, are getting hunted down and caught. But I'll agree with you that I don't think we're quite done yet.
I just feel like I may as well just still be locked in one of those fucking cells.
What did he do to you?
It wasn't what he did to me.
And do you know what the ones he did it to did?
Not specifically.
So where do we draw the line of who's worse in all this, who has to die, who gets to die? Look, he told me he stopped the necromancy things, and he only does his experiments on the worst of the worst. Believe what you wish. I'm sure that being down there for so long was terrible. But is this one man's evil worth all the good that you could do in your life?
Well, his worst of the worst stuff is bullshit. Maybe he thinks that. Maybe he genuinely believes that he's doing some good for the world. But I also know that the people who end up down there aren't just the people who deserve that. I have a friend who did some work for the Covenant once. They hired him to hunt down people that they couldn't convict. And in return, he is now wanted for murder in Ember Shore. So for doing a job for them that they couldn't do themselves, if he shows his face in this town again, he gets to be sent down there to be tortured to death by Sarnellis.
And you decide to use their tact and take matters in your own hands. Someone you can't convict, you kill. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry I wasn't going to be able to give you your revenge. I did try. I tried to get you out. This is what I could do. A stalemate so that everyone can live, including him. If you want to try again, you do it without me.
For what it's worth, Felix, I'm not blaming you for any of this. I'm just sick of feeling so fucking powerless. I'm sick of knowing that we handed people over to him to do what he does. That makes me complicit in whatever he does to those people. Whatever he already has done. Just like I was complicit in what Voyage was doing. What Voyage did to Orr.
And so you would rather have let the people go? Murdered them all?
I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is.
There isn't one.
Well, you sure seem to act like you know what it is.
No, I'm acting as a rational person who can close off his emotions. I suggest you learn how, because it's not going to get any easier. Nothing is.
Thank you for getting us out of there.
You're welcome. I'm sorry I'm cold. I don't know any other way. But I'm also at least a little bit right.
Yeah, you are. Vesper this whole time, she's gone behind the bar and found something to drink and has been leaning on it, watching them argue. Felix is right. That's my opinion. That's all I'm going to say on it.
Ellory, can I talk to you for just a small moment, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Amsen will just grab Ellory and take her a little bit away from everything. I'll be right back. Maybe this is... I don't know. How do you feel right now?
I feel a lot right now. I don't know. I don't know if I can put words to it.
All right, let's try. One at a time. Just a single word. What's the first thing that pops into your head? Just a word.
Nothing. I mean, the word nothing.
All right, just breathe for a second.
Like that's all I am.
No. You're not nothing. I know you're not. You've saved all of our lives many times. And to be perfectly honest, if it wasn't for you, we would not be here.
I'm not sure I believe that.
I can name 2 places where you saved our lives. Every single one of ours. The first one, when we were in the Gullah Cave, you were the only one alive. You managed to beat all of them and drag us all out until the rest of us at least gained consciousness to help you. You were the last one up. And the second time, you cast a spell and a unicorn came and it obeyed you. And it helped you. It helped all of us. And maybe not all of us to the extent that you would like, but the rest of us are alive. You saved us, Ellory. All of our lives were in your hands at one point, and you saved us. At least in my books, and in all the tales that I've ever heard, saving the world in a way is the most powerful thing that you can do. And if Felix's prophecies are right, and maybe if he's right in us and believing that we're supposed to save the world somehow, well, Ellory, you just saved the world before the end even started.
I think Ellory is quiet listening to this. And then she just wraps her arms around Amsen's shoulders and just hold on to him for a minute.
Amsen will hug her back and just say, "You're not powerless, Ellory. We owe you all of our lives. We really do."
Well, I guess, fuck Sarnellis then.
Right? Listen, I understand that finding out that his defenses were a little, up to snuff and everything like that we underestimated his power and all, and not getting to do anything about it is rather disappointing. I understand that. if there's anything that you need to do before we go, I'll at least volunteer to help you. And we can ask the others as well. But you make the call. You're the only one who can decide what you need.
I'm not sure I know how to recognize what I need, but... Fuck, I wish there were just something more that we could do.
Well, how about we make sure that this can't happen ever again?
And how do we manage that?
Or maybe we can use the system against itself. They used the system to get what they want, and maybe we can make it a little harder, especially now that the resources are kind of scattered, captured in a way by the Covenant. Some. Why don't we make it a little bit harder for this town to do their dirty business?
Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?
Well, let me put it this way. We suddenly, very suddenly, came into the possession of a bunch of, well, goods that the Covenant hasn't been able to, well...
Confiscate?
Yes. So, why don't we use it to the best course of action that could be taken, and trust somebody that has the ability to do so with the task of making sure that this can't happen again. Maybe we can free some people. Make sure that Heritage Pax doesn't have any business left in this town. At least, that's the specific idea that I've got.
That is something that I could get behind. And I think at this point, I'll kind of start pulling Amsen back over to the others. So, how do the rest of you feel about buying ourselves a law?
Sure, might as well. Do we know when the Covenant vote is, or are we going to have someone stand in for us?
To be honest, I don't think we can wait around that long. And I don't really know how the specifics of it work, so maybe what we need to do is find somebody who can get this done for us. If we can all agree on what we want.
My vote is to keep there from being any more slavery. I think that's the most good we could do with what we've got. The Fernarm's gone and the Red Watch broken. Hopefully the Devil's Yard won't have enough money to counteract a proposal against the slavery.
Yeah, I might have said something about getting Sarnellis out of there, but somehow I don't think a law is enough to do that.
No, I think he's pretty well protected.
But it has been preying on my mind how many people there are in this city who are still in chains, who shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Alright, then. Let's find someone who's very good with law and propose to them to help us draft up something where slavery in all of Embershaw is illegal, and that all currently enslaved, indentured, under indentured servitude, anything like that, is freed.
Okay, does anybody know a lawyer?
God?
There's not like a profession of lawyers, but your best bet would be utilizing some of your contacts you imagine have more experience with making covenants into laws. The Norbells come to mind. You just pulled off a pretty big favor for them. Any of the other big families, covenant contacts.
I have a friend who's part of one of the families, Holana Morport. Maybe she knows someone. I don't know if she's directly involved in any of the legal stuff here, but her family is.
Well, the Norbells owe us a favor, and they own most of the laws in the city.
A Norbell-backed law to ban slavery in the entire city would be pretty powerful indeed.
Mm. And then I also know people in the Covenant.
Why don't we ask around then? We can get this going. Leave some sort of mark on this city.
Okay.
What is Felix doing? I think Vesper's been regarding him a little bit out of the corner of her eye.
I think when they left, he, for a little bit, just walked over to the wall and hit his head against it for a minute. And then I think he gets a bottle of wine and is just kind of sitting in the corner, staring at the wall kind of blankly.
I'll catch up to you two if you want us to start heading out.
All right. Let's start asking around, Ellery. We can figure out who we need to talk to start drafting something up. Just let us know when you're on your way, and we'll let you know where we are.
Sure.
Amsen will grab Vesper's hand for a second with both hands and just squeeze. You all right?
I will be. I love you.
I love you too.
She'll squeeze his hand.
Ellery.
Amsen will nod and please, Ellery, can we talk about this on the way there?
I think Ellery just kind of looks between them and can't help but grin a little bit and shake her head. All right, let's go.
All right, who's going where?
When they leave, Vesper will sit down next to Felix. So, where are you guys going?
Do we want to talk to the Norbells or your friend first?
I feel like the Norbells are going to be bigger help. So they might be a better bet.
Okay. Then I guess Amsen will probably take Ellery and start leading her towards the Norbells' place, wherever is best to find them.
Okay. Probably at their manor. Right, so is that just Ellery and Amsen? And Vesper and Felix are staying at the Copper Sail?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm going to say Ball, who's been kind of distant, staring out the window, distracted, is going to go to he lets you know he's going to go to his place outside of the walls where he used to camp and just kind of get back in touch with where he came from. So who wants to go first?
I will.
Okay.
So Vesper will go once they all leave and sit next to Felix. And she'll sit quietly for a minute and also be drinking a little. You know, you and Ezekiel would have absolutely hated one another.
Well, it's not surprising. I make everybody hate me.
Not everyone.
And kind of just glance at her.
We owe you our lives.
Yeah, you do. But the illness didn't. It almost didn't work. And I kept pushing and testing my luck. And if Sarnellis, as evil as he may be, wasn't on some level understanding of what I was doing, none of us would have gotten out of there.
Well, good thing you're a genius then, right?
And you see him kind of like immediately like twitch somewhat. Of course, I know pretty much everything in the world, and I single-handedly got us out of a failed prison break, so unscathed entirely.
Yeah. Cheers.
Look, I'm acutely aware that I don't know how to communicate with people, and I have been trying very hard to understand all of you as a very emotional group.
Yeah. It takes practice. I've known them all for most of my life, and I still feel like I'm grasping at straws sometimes. Vesper looks like she wants to say more and then realizes Felix doesn't want to hear her emotional bullshit and just takes another drink.
I sat there in that cell for a long time. All I could think was, what if all the prophecies are right, and now this means I failed? Or what if that Mr. Walker creature was right, and they're false, and I just threw my life away for nothing? All because revenge? Against someone who didn't even do anything to her? And I know that it's more complicated than that, clearly, because everybody is very upset. But for me, it just came down to everything. Everything was gone. Everything I worked my life for, in an instant. Because we needed to do this thing that really was just going to make them feel better. Because the prisoners are still going to be treated awfully. Maybe not raised as undead, but terrible things are still going to happen to them, no matter who's in charge of the prison. I was scared.
So were we. Couldn't contact you. That's like the pouch, we couldn't leave. Just sat there for hours in an orb. Wondering what was going on. Where we were. Where we'd be able to come out. I thought you were dead for sure. Or worse. But you're right, Felix. We need to focus on what's important and what we can do tomorrow, not just throwing our lives away for good today. I've always sort of tried to preach that, but, well, you know how everyone else is. Eventually it just gets easier to go with the flow.
Yeah, well, it was easier to say yes than try and argue that it was a bad idea, so I understand.
Yeah.
I wasn't listening either earlier. What nonsense are we getting into now?
Oh, we're hoping to leave behind an impact, a law to free the slaves and make sure no more are ever entrapped and sold.
Great.
It's something.
Well, you all enjoy that. I don't think I will be very helpful in this endeavor.
Well, I'm not very good at talking to people either, so do you want my company, or should I leave you alone?
Get me more wine. You're not half bad.
I will take that as the highest of compliments. And you're not completely awful either.
Cheers to not completely awful.
Clink my bottle against his.
Glass. How many times do I have to tell you?
Right. My bottle against his.
Okay. And with the clink, we flash cut to Ellory and Amsen, who walk through Ember Shore, crossing over through the Kin Cross district and up onto the raised plateau of Warm Garden, where all the finer manors and elevated families live. Move up to the Norbell Tower, marked by very tall tower where the large emberstone glows, especially now as the sun is beginning its very slow descent.
Before we really enter into this neighborhood, I just kind of pull on Amsen's elbow. Do you think I should try to look like someone else? Do you think they'll...
Amsen will look at Ellory. He'll, squint at her, studying her, and then he'll kind of lean his head back. No, of course not. Ellory, you're a different person now than you were when we were young. Well, I mean, we're still young, but you get the point. We're different than we were when we were children. You're different than you were when you were a child.
I wasn't a child when I broke into that house.
It certainly feels that long ago. My apologies. Listen, you may have broken into that house at one point, but now you're the hero of the town. If anything, they owe you any of the riches that they have in their house, but we're not going to ask for that, are we?
I mean, not their house, but the house of...
You get the point.
One of the people who worked with... Yeah.
Ellery, just be yourself. You don't have to hide anything.
Okay. So I do not cast Disguise Self. And just try and hold my chin up as we walk through this part of town.
Okay. You walk through this neighborhood where all the posh houses and manors are, eventually making it to the Norbell Tower, which also includes sort of a compound almost. On the outer gates, the Covenants recognize you as you've come and gone a few times here lately, and one of them escorts you up to the front door, which once is open, there appears to be some sort of either servant or valet of some sort. A very tall, maybe 6'5" or so, older gentleman in his 40s, maybe early 50s, very broad-shouldered, but has a bit of a belly, well-dressed. Yes, what can I do for you? Members of the Scales, correct?
That is indeed correct.
Is there some way I can be of assistance?
I kind of glance at Amsen and then look back at this man. We were hoping that we could perhaps get some advice about the legal workings of this city.
Well, come in and I'll fetch the intermediary. And he guides you in, passing the door, one of which leads to the library on the left, and one of them leads down toward and also to the teleportation circles you've came out of a few times, and into the next room. Larger room, which eventually leads you into a office, sort of foyer, antechamber type room. Intermediary Fall will be with you shortly.
Thank you very much.
Gestures for you to have a seat and leaves. Minutes pass before Go ahead.
Amsen, I don't know what the fuck I am doing.
It's okay, neither do I. But we're going to figure it out. And Amsen will do his best to put on his most friendly smile.
About 5 minutes later, someone comes in. You've seen her around a few times before, a female halfling, probably in her 50s, short with brown hair, kept fairly short, just over her shoulders. She's wearing simple rectangular glasses and some kind of gray lavender robes, carrying a large binder, as well as a satchel kind of over her shoulder. Members of the Scales, correct? Pleasure. She sits down and opens her binder where there's some paper and parchment. What can I do for you?
Amsen will look over at Elliot. Would you like me to? Would you? I'm fine.
Why don't you explain what we have in mind?
Sure. All right. Well, so we're in a little bit of a situation here. You see, we've got some business to attend to elsewhere, but we'd like a certain few things to, make sure that they happen in the city. First off, the main thing is that while we're gone, we're hoping to alleviate the situation of indentured servitude in the city. We realize that a lot of the people who were apprehended following, the evidence we uncovered underneath the winery and all that, were partaking in the slave trading business. And we don't really appreciate that business very much. And we were wondering how feasible it would be to perhaps make sure that it's an illegal practice throughout the entire city, and that whoever is currently enslaved will be freed.
A nasty business, to be sure. Such a proposition to band a covenant and establish a new one comes with a substantial cost. I'm not sure if you're aware of how much it might cost.
We are not, but we are also not aware of how much our money is currently capable of helping, so to speak.
Before I delve into this further, how much are you willing to contribute?
So we'll look over at Ellory.
Well,
kind of clueless.
Oh, we have more resources than we're used to at the moment. I honestly don't know what kind of coin we're talking about right now, but we have at least 25,000 that we can spare. Perhaps more if it's necessary.
She's been making strong eye contact with whoever's speaking. At the time, switching over to Ellory for this last bit, and has been kind of jotting notes. Short, quick script. And when you say the number, she stops writing. 25,000 gold?
Yes, gold pieces. In various allotments of types of currencies, but yes.
Mostly in ingots of various types.
Her eyes start darting around like she's thinking. She's tapping the quill upon the paper repeatedly, just in thought. Does this for about 30 seconds before looking back at you. I think the Norbell family would be quite intrigued with this, furthering this proposal. But it would not be for me to say.
Can I roll an insight check?
Sure. What are you looking for?
Like, how appalled does she seem to be at the notion of us, offering 25,000 gold for this?
I'm kind of wondering if I can get a sense of if this is way more than we need or not enough, based on her reaction.
We use luck. I hate when I use luck and roll even lower than my terrible roll. 7.
13 for me.
She's definitely surprised at how big the number you mentioned was. It's hard to know, is that a significant portion or all of it or way more than needed? You don't really know, but she is surprised that you're willing to offer that much. And seems willing to move forward, that it's enough to at least continue the conversation. I would like to continue this conversation, but this would require input from the director himself.
Of course.
Let me speak to him. She takes a bell out of her pocket and rings it. A few seconds go by, and then the man you saw earlier enters. Would you retrieve Harris? And send her to the Grand Room. I'm going to go meet with the director. Would you, if he turns back to you, would you mind waiting just a few more minutes?
Of course.
Yeah, I think that's possible, definitely. Yeah.
Thank you very much. If you need anything, Sully, after you can reach Harris, come back here and fetch them whatever they need. They nod at each other and they leave.
Is it just me and Ellery in the room?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think
Amsen's gonna kind of...
Go ahead.
So Amsen's leaning back in his chair a little bit and slouching after they leave. And Amsen will look over at Ellery and be like, I think we offered them too much. What do you think?
I think we might have. It's hard to tell, though. I know we surprised her. She didn't think we were going to name that number.
I'm sure it's all right. Look, buying the freedom of God knows how many people.
Yeah, I wonder if anyone has any actual numbers on that. Is anyone saying anything now?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay. So about 10 minutes go by of Amsen and Ellory hanging out in this foyer office before Odira returns the halfling. Would you mind coming with me? No.
So we will follow.
She leads you out of this room, down the long hallway where it looks like there's a few offices, foyers, places to entertain people. Before she gets to a set of stairs on the other side, you go up the stairs and entering into another kind of empty foyer with a few chairs, a few desks as well, and two large double doors. Fine wood. You're not sure exactly what it's made out of, but it's heavily carved and even has metal, like wrought iron, kind of mixed in with the door. The door itself is, what's the word? Not ordinate. It's fancy.
Ornate?
That's the one. Ornate. It's ornate. She brings you up there. I'm going to prep them as the executives finish their business. You'll be meeting with the head executives of the Nexus Trust and the heads of the Norbell family. These will include myself as the intermediary, Executive Lewis Norbell, Ina Harris, our expert on covenants and laws, Director Francis, Frank Norbell himself. Address him first as Mr. Norbell, after which he will insist you call him Frank.
Thank you.
I nod. Maybe looking slightly wide-eyed at this point.
Okay. She enters, opening the door before quickly shutting it. You get, looking through the crack before the door closes, you see a round table of mahogany sitting in a circular room, the next room in, with numerous chairs set about with one central figure in his 50s sitting at the head. And about 10 more minutes pass before another servant, not the one you saw before, but another one, approaches the door, carrying like a clipboard. "We're ready for you." Opens the door and guides you in. You're set at 2 chairs opposite this sort of semicircle of people. In the center is who you presume to be Director Frank Norbell, human in his 50s, dark, tan skin, black hair, well kept, thick circular glasses, and is wearing fine clothing but sleeves rolled up, pragmatic. To his left, you see a younger man, maybe late 20s, early 30s, tall, dark and handsome, probably Frank's son. And to the right of Frank, Odira Fall, the halfling, sits. And then the last figure, who's sitting on the end next to Odira, is a female in her maybe late 20s, early 30s. Brown hair, red lipstick, with a short skirt and a long jacket in the thorn style of high fashion in Embershore. Adira, as you take your seats, Adira speaks up. Director, Frank, this is Ellory and Amsen, members of the Bronze Scales, who recently helped with the Red Watch and the Princes of Olrath here in Embershore. They would like to make a proposal about slavery in the city, about changing a covenant.
Well, let's hear it.
Amsen will bow respectfully, and he'll say, "Pleasure to meet all of your acquaintances, especially yourself, Mr. Norbell."
Frank is fine, please.
Very well, Frank. Thank you for your time. Ellery, do you mind? I'm just going to, if you don't stop me.
Please be my guest.
Very well. Ellery and I would like to further a little bit of our ideas into this town. Unfortunately, we have a great deal of work to do outside of the city post-haste. So what we'd like to do is, in our absence, hopefully this can be done, is we would like to make a generous donation in order to ensure the freedom of those who are under indentured servitude and slavery currently, that they would be freed, and that future endeavors to propagate a business in dealing in slavery is no longer feasible here in Embershore. Outright illegal, to be, well, pardon the pun, but frank.
No, I like that one. And Odira here tells me you're willing to contribute. How much?
Well, the original proposed amount that we have stated is that we have 25,000 gold available for this arrangement.
Mm-hmm. Harris, how much would it be to get rid of slavery in Embershore?
And the Harris, the female with red lipstick, well, probably 25, 30 would do it. But that doesn't take into account getting rid of the current slaves, just all future ones, according to how the covenant is written.
Well, and how much would that cost?
Depends on how many there are. Standard rate between 100, even up to 1,000, probably around 500, I'd say, for the average. Another 20, 25 tops.
So we're looking at 50 or 60.
That would be my best guess, yes. And Frank addresses you two again. Then you say you can contribute 25.
While they're saying this, Amsen is going to just kind of, absent-mindedly touch the pouch that he has, Felix's pouch, and he'll basically radio to Felix. So 25 to 30 to eliminate future slavery endeavors. Or another 25 to 30 they're estimating to free current slaves. Input?
But I've been drinking. What?
I will repeat that thought and ask for both Felix and Vesper's input.
Vesper, they said it's going to be a lot of money.
Okay, ask him if we have that amount of money.
Out of character, how much do we have again?
Out of character, we have a little over 40,000.
Okay. Oh, okay, I see it.
The number that's in the party inventory is not updated, so it's a little bit less than what it shows there.
Oh, okay.
Why don't you casually remind them that we stopped them from being overruled and their souls being trapped in a hell dimension for all eternity?
Amsen will think, excellent idea, Felix. Of course, thank you. And Amsen will say, well, Frank, we would be more than happy to provide the funds to eliminate future slavery endeavors. However, we were wondering, considering the fact that we have done a favor for you, maybe perhaps you would be so generous as to assist us in this endeavor. It would certainly prevent future similar situations from happening.
Felix, also tell them that if the Norbells back a law like this, it's going to look great for their, standing in history.
Amsen, remind them that people think they're assholes and that freeing slaves generally is very nice in history.
Amsen will also state, indeed, it would put the Norbell family in a most gracious spotlight for as long as the history of Embershore shall exist. It would be a wonderful legacy for all of you to be reminded that it was a law backed by the Norbells that freed the slaves of Embershore.
Indeed. Well, the Nexus Trust and the Norbell family would quite like to see this heinous practice be put to an end. However, the total amount, looking towards Odira, or to Harris, is how much? 45 to 60? That is quite a sum. Odira, what about that contract with the Drama and Volk? And Adira begins quickly going through notes. Right. I'll play ball. I'll be willing to put some up. But you gotta come up from 25. How much you got? How much you working with?
That leaves us with, 15? That's not terrible.
Yeah.
It's more than we've had.
If we put it up to 30, that'd leave us with 10.
No. He's only asking for 25. You don't negotiate up.
Oh. No, that's what he's that's what he's asking. He's asking, to bump it up, and then they can back it up.
Oh, okay. I was confused.
Yeah.
I thought you were like...
Yeah, I'm like...
I heard...
No, I'm not going to grog this.
And then you went, you want 30? No.
Okay. No. He's saying, listen, I'll back you up, but you got to contribute a little bit more. What do you got?
I mean, it's up to you guys. Felix doesn't care. Well, about the town. He actually would prefer more money, so you probably don't want to ask him.
That's fair. Amsen will kind of look at Ellery. Shrug a little bit.
I will nod to him. I believe we could meet you halfway.
30.
I think that would be doable.
Oh, dear. You see she's been going through her notes frantically and has pulled out one sheet of paper and is reviewing it before she glances at him and points to something on the page and shows it to him. You'll come up to 35, and I'll cover the rest. We'll make sure the covenant is joint in name, Norbell, and the scales if you prefer, or your individual names.
35. I believe I will have to do a little bit of math, but I think we can handle that.
All right. Well, I'll let Harris work out the details, but as far as I'm concerned, my word is my bond. You put in 35, I'll put in whatever is left to make sure it happens. The Norbell family and the Nexus Trust will cover all costs to make sure Harris can get this done. She's the best in town. Now, when you're ready, deliver your funds and we'll show Harris will have some paperwork for you. With that business aside, I've done some good in this town, and I think we can do quite a bit more. We'll see what Harris can do. The winery's empty for now. Won't be for too long, though. They had some reserves in there. It's been confiscated by the Covenant and a few bottles auctioned off. I'd like to send some with y'all as a thank you for this Covenant, but also what you've done for the city. You're good folk. It's always good to have good folk in the city where they can be hard to come by.
You are most gracious, sir. Thank you.
Not Sir Frank.
You are most gracious, Frank. Thank you.
Y'all gonna be around long?
I'm afraid probably not. We've got a lot of business to take care of.
Well, if there's anything else I can help with, you let me know. We're looking for someone else to run the winery once we clear it out. And, well, there's always business opportunities.
Perhaps we can recommend a good candidate for that.
Oh, yes.
And I kind of glance at Amsen very briefly and then back at Frank Norbell and say, well, my father, Mogthur Goldsmith, does have experience with this sort of trade.
Yeah, I believe he owns one of the private exchanges. Well, if that's a recommendation for your father, I can send some representatives down and see if he'd be interested.
I appreciate that, Frank.
Good. Oh dear, will you see them out and have Sully bring how many of you are on the scales? 5?
Currently with us, there are 2 other elsewhere.
Give him a bottle for every scale. We'll be in touch. Harris will write the paperwork up.
Thank you.
Doing good work.
Thank you very much for your time.
Anytime. You're welcome. Adira stands up and begins to walk you guys out of the room.
Well, that went well. We'll have Harris send you guys the paperwork. And we'll have Sully bring you guys some bottles as well. If you guys have a second, I get it for you now. If not, we can deliver it.
I believe we have a second. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can wait a little bit.
And how many were there? 4.
There are 7 of us, if you count the 2 that are currently elsewhere.
Well,
I can name them all if you would like.
Melly is still in the city.
Yes, that is true.
Familiar with Melly? Yeah, give me a moment. And she kind of leaves you in the very front foyer for a few minutes, and eventually she comes back with Sully carrying several of these bottles in like a small wooden crate.
Well, this is big. It's not ever pretty, but it's going to be good.
We appreciate your assistance.
Yes.
Thank you for your help.
Thank you for your help.
Anytime. We'll be in touch.
Okay.
And Sully hands you guys a case of wine with 7 bottles in there.
Cool.
As we are carrying this case away, I remember that whole thing about demon blood and just quietly cast Detect Evil and Good to see if I, get anything off of these bottles.
Nothing pings.
Are they safe?
As far as I can tell.
All right, good. I'm really curious to see how much these are worth. Do you think your father would know?
I'm sure he can make an estimate. I hope he doesn't mind that I just recommended him to manage the winery.
If not, then maybe Shoza. I don't know.
I've been getting the impression since we've been home that Scherza might be more interested in your line of work.
Psh, no.
She's taken up the mandolin.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
She could probably still be a good bartender anyways. But that's good for her. I'm glad that more people are getting into the arts.
Yeah, I like to see it. She seems to enjoy it anyway.
They're not going to be happy with how much money we just blew.
Yeah, that was a lot. But we still have more than we've had. Well.
Hey, I don't think we need 7 bottles of wine.
I think we had more money than this for about 2 days before it all went scattering into the astral sea.
Right.
But besides that, we still have the most we've ever had.
Come on, let's go.
Okay.
So we'll probably take a break here.
I do want to say one thing, because it's not worth doing after the break, but upon hearing how much money you spent, Felix is going to immediately find that person's house. He will inscribe sulfur on a rock and throw it in the Norbell's yard so that now anytime someone gets within 10 feet of that rock, they smell fart and good luck finding it.
Oh my god.
Yes.
And that lasts until I die or I make 5 more of those kind of things.
Oh, great.
I mean, Ellory does not disapprove of this.
Good. Make 4.
And I disguise myself as Vesper's covenant boyfriend as I do it.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so Ellery and Amsen get back. Felix goes on his sulfur rampage, and I guess we'll pick back up in the copper sale and see what you guys are wanting to do. But the sun is probably going to be set at that point.
Next time on Back to the Story.
But I have to believe that Voltimeri must see something in me. Or at least have some use for me.
Everyone can change. Not everyone will, but everyone can. They deserve to die with dignity no matter who they are.
All I have is a sword, my word, and some good soldiers. And I don't think it's enough.
For part 2 of this episode of Back to the Story, you can find it on SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you prefer to get your podcasts. We also have a YouTube channel called Back to the Story, an actual play podcast. If you'd like to support the show, feel free to buy us a coffee at ko-fi.com/backtothestory.